Hello guys, welcome for another episode of Build Your Own Drone with ZyKlone. I felt we need to elaborate on this because I've got a lot of comments that dude still didn't understand what I'm talking about. So, in programming your radio, we're going to cover exactly with this demonstration. There's a servo motor there, and for this demonstration we'd hooked everything up on channel 1 on the radio there, which is the aileron channel. And here's our radio, and as you will see on channel 1 there, we've got everything on 100%. The swash, AFR, camera just paused, 100%. We've got sub trim at 70, so let's go ahead and clear that. 100% on the sub trim, so there's no trim now. Send the settings to the radio. Okay. We've got channel 1 endpoint, 100% and 100%. I'm going to define what all these mean, what these two endpoints mean, everything. The swash, AFR, and the sub-trim. Everything's 100% right now on channel 1, but somehow we've got minus 6% there. I think the trim, yup, it was the trim there. Let me see. Where are we? Right? The sub-trim. Yeah, the sub-trim affected that on the program. No problem. But anyways, here we go. Here's your stick movement to the right. That's the amount you're moving your stick. In relation to the servo, this is the servo movement. So if you had everything at 100%, it's 1-to-1, bop and bop. You move it this amount, the servo moves the equal amount. Now, if you minus it 60% or whatever, then it's 0.6-to-1. So as you move this one, it's only 60% at the servo. I hope you guys got that, because that's basically the fundamental there, is that you're trimming out the servo. You're cutting the input on the servo. So I've set this up right now, and I see that the motor is off minus 6. Is off minus 6. So let's just adjust this thing to be 0 to account for the minus 6, because you can't adjust it mechanically like that, and 0 to servo instead of the computer. But anyways, we'll not get into that. What we're going to get into right now, we've got 100% on everything. So at that 0 mark, let's move this thing over or whatever, or that thing over. The servo moves to the right when I move the stick, that amount. That's plus 100%. Alright, we're at 0. And there's minus 100%. So when you're decreasing these values, anything above there is plus 50%, half line there, 100% there. This is the arc. So 50%, minus 50%. You guys get the drift? Alright. Now let's go to the AFR here, or the endpoint, so you guys can see when your servo, say at the rudder, is hitting the ends, the pitch control or something, you can come down here, and let's just put it at 10% and see what happens on this side, the left side, which would account for the positive, the upswing. So send that. Now we'll see 10%. It should have 10% and then 100%. You see that? 10%. I'm moving it all the way left now. The stick is being moved all the way left. All the way left, but I'm only getting 10%. That's the end point there. And 100% there. And that reflects 10%, 100%. Now let's do this. 10%, 10%. Send it to the radio. Boom. Alright. Here we go. There's down and there's up. So we're hardly getting any movement anywhere, because the end points, there it is, full left stick, full right stick. The end points have been adjusted to only allow 10% to pass. We'll switch that back now to 100, and then we'll hit that one with another 0, and there we'll send it to the radio, and we should have our 100% back. Okay, we do. At the AFR, you can pretty much accomplish the same thing, but it'll cover the whole range, so you couldn't cut it off the top or the bottom. But if you put 60% here, or just 10% in the AFR, you're going to cut from the midpoint on the servo, so you couldn't dial the end points. Now it's from the midpoint. We're just cutting 60% straight across the board. And here we go. That's the amount left stick, right stick. We're at 10%. So same thing, but from the middle. You can't just do one side and cut 10%. It'll affect the whole thing. So let's put this at 50% AFR. And that's why I say if you guys are just learning how to fly, just do the AFR, cut it down from 100 to 50, and that'll dampen the controls where it's not 100% and drastic. So there we are at 50. It's all across the board. It cuts 50 from the center, 25 up top, 25 up bottom. You get the drift. The end point would cut from here to there, 25%, whichever side you assign the value to. So there you go with the AFR at 50%. The sub trims, we'll put the swash back to 100. Send it to the radio. Okay, the sub trim, alright, we're adjusting the sub trim right here to 10. Send it to the radio, and it pretty much just trims 10 off the end points at the very end. You see what I'm saying? So whereas AFR would do it from the center, the sub trim actually trims the ends, and with the end points you can trim individual channels. Okay, so either one of these ways you can trim the amount that your motor is putting out. So if you're giving left stick here and your whatever control, say this is signed to channel 4, which is the rudder, say that when you're giving it trim, the pitch slider hits the end and the motor's going, cut it off at the end point on that side, because it's at the ends that the motor's buzzing. You understand what I'm saying? The rest, you trim it out as you desire, but again, we'll cover the thing that the AFR does it from the middle. The end points do it from the individual respective side, whichever side you trim. So we'll go ahead and do the end point again one more time for demonstration purposes. Right now we're getting 100, 100, nothing's trimmed, anything. There's the end points. We'll trim the end point on the negative or the positive side here to 50% now. And now when we move the stick, there we go, 50% now. That's exactly half of what it moved before, isn't it? That's the half of what it moved before. So you're cutting the end points the same way that the sub trim would do, from the end, meaning this side, into it. From the end, you're cutting it from that individual side. From that individual side. So if we go, if you're having problems there, where the rudder, when you're pulling that stick, is hitting that side, right there, you would have cured that. Right there. At that point. You would have cured that. So, we'll go ahead and do 50-50 and see that now it is half of its before movement, the respective movement where it was before, on both sides. You can also mix the AFR in with this and really drastically cut it, so we'll put 50 on the AFR also on channel 1 on the AFR. Now we have 50 there. Now it's all across the board. It just cuts it to half of the half. So we'll go ahead and do 50 on the sub trim. So now it's 50 all across the board as opposed to 100. So basically now the sub trim even halves that. So these are 3 mathematical. You see that? These are 3 mathematical. There it is. It's cut. These are 3 mathematical equations that by doubling them up and everything like that, or whatever, using one on the top of the other, you can get precise control of the mechanical parts that move your rotor blades and pitch your blades and pitch your tail rotor blades. Now we went back to channel 1, 100%. We've got 50% on the AFR, and we've got 50% on the sub trim. If we trim this to sub trim, let's pay attention to how it's coming down to that line down there. If we put the sub trim back to 100% now, We've still got AFR at 50. Alright. Now I've had sub trim for my setup on channel 1 was 70. I have to remember I had everything adjusted for my helicopter, and now with the demonstral, on the radio, this servo motor here is generic. So this is my chopper's trim right here. This is channel 1, everything. This is my trim on channel 1. Those two lines right there. That moves my ailerons. Alright, one last thing I'm going to cover is testing your servos. So we'll go ahead and pull the battery power out of the receiver. On your receiver right here, you'll notice, just in case, I think if you're this advanced where you're watching this, up top it says BAT. In the middle, that's always like the positive. To the right side here, that is the negative. And the left side is the signal wire. And that bright orange color there is usually the signal. Is usually the signal wire, the bright orange one. Or white. So remember that. Do not plug that in wrong. But that's why they have positive in the middle, because that's the most dangerous thing if you plug it in backwards. But here I'm going to try to keep you guys on the video link there as I hook this thing up. Same thing on here. It says when you're hooking up your servo thing, it says positive in the middle, negative on the bottom, signal out. So that's going, it can test 3 servos. This is the E-tronics tester. So we'll make sure, be very careful that the signal wire is right there, and we have it on the signal wire, and then it's positive and negative. And that, come on, goes in there. We'll give it the power now, and again, be careful, positive, negative. So here it is, black and red. The negative is black. Make sure you get that in the right place. And there we go. We're going to test this servo to full range of motion. When you're getting your servos, you get it with the servo tester here. And now, you can see the full range. Well, where did I pull the power out? My goodness. I am having a nightmare of a time with this makeshift setup, which I've done for demonstration purposes. With this, you can test the full range of the motor, because there we go, twisting the knob fully. And then it also has the switches where you can do the servo. It does its thing where it's neutral. Now it automatically goes through its full range, like a windshield wiper. You can test your motors with this. Make sure your motors are running and test the full range. And then see how your radio equates to that. And then sometimes your radio cuts some of the signal off naturally. But anyways, I hope this has been a very informative thing, and now you guys understand how to adjust your servos in your radio so that the mechanical parts function precisely and correctly without coming to stops at the ends, because we don't want you to burn your servo motors out. You guys that are getting into RC, pay good attention. You save yourselves a lot of money, because these servo motors and stuff are finicky things, and if they keep hitting the stops when you're pushing the stick, eventually you're going to find out that your servo's dead, and you'll have to wait 3 to 4 weeks or whatever to get a new one. So I advise you just learn your stuff, I guess. And if you do a helicopter or something, do it right, because especially with that, it can be very expensive and time consuming as you wait months and months and months for a fresh new part that you could have avoided destroying. Well, anyways, this will be another episode of Build Your Own Drone with ZyKlone, sponsored by Coca-Cola, IBM, and of course Microsoft, although I advise you to use Linux. You guys have a good night.